welcome to the Point. It is Monday, August 31st, 2020. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Television Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, those of you watching on GBN TV, channel 7, 11 and 20, and the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9. This morning I have joining us President with the Commercial and Industrial Workers Union, Mr. George Mason. This morning we're talking union matters. Good morning, Mr. Mason.
Good morning, Blossom. Good morning to all listeners of Classic K105, Hot FM, YouTube, Facebook, and all social media platform users. Good morning.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Top of the morning to you as well. Mr. Mason, let's get right into it. One of the most recent activities, should I call it activities, from the CIWU in relation to NIS. I understand last Friday you engaged in limited industrial action. Shed some light on us what the situation was at NIS and has it been resolved?
Yes, well, as you said, it was limited industrial unrest, just a slight disturbance. We had completed negotiation in February, and as everyone knows, NIS has been instructed out of 2015 through a directive given by the government as part of the structural adjustment program that all statutory bodies and all state-owned enterprises must consult with the Ministry of Finance in whatever negotiation they are into. So having completed the negotiation in February, the NIS board wrote to the Ministry of Finance asking for the green light to go ahead with the payments. Well, the Ministry of Finance never responded. Several letters were sent, and there was no response. And we, and the workers, considered it as disrespect to the board, whom the government had appointed. There are two members from the Greater Employers Federation on the board. There are two members from the Greater Trade Union Council, and there are two members from the government on the board. And the board, having made a recommendation based on the directives given by the government, has now decided to ask the government for its suggestion. And for almost 5 months, there was no response. So the workers and the union decided, well, if they are disrespectful to the board, well, the workers will show that they need to respect the workers also. And within 2 hours, a call came from the Ministry of Finance to go ahead. Simple as that.
And the issue has been resolved?
It has resolved, yes. I tell you, within 2 hours, it was resolved. After a delay of 5 months.
So I was going to ask, do you think the industrial action had the impact that you were hoping, or it was something else that spurred that quick response?
No, of course. You see what is happening in Grenada, Blossom. It seems as though anything you want to get done, you have to make some noise. You have to take to the street. You have to go on social media, which should not be, because there are people who are paid to do what they are paid for. And of course, responding to the board's request will be either a yes or a no. That's just all that was required. But it takes 5 months and 2 hours of the union's activation and protestation to have an answer. So everything is settled, all is well done on the Western Front.
And what about other companies that the CIWU represents? This is not normal times or under COVIDious times. We've been hearing of instances of unjust actions against employees across the island during this lockdown period. From the CIWU point of view, how has its workers been treated over the past 6 months of the COVID lockdown, or regulations, I should say, in Grenada?
We are keeping our fingers crossed blossom. Because so far, we have only had one department closed down. That is the courts branch on Hillsborough Street, where 6 workers lost their job. But the industrial climate remains very volatile. We are praying that we get through this process without much more job losses. I've heard of other companies which not only send workers home, but cut salaries. But we are holding our own, and we are ensuring that the only other outstanding issue, which is the issue of the vacation, which was used up, workers' vacation, which was used during the lockdown period. We have challenged companies with that because vacation belong to workers, and workers were not informed in some cases. They were just told to want vacation, whereas in some other cases, the workers were told, and we are looking at each case on its merit. So while we have not been making much wave in the news over that, it is because we are negotiating with companies on that scope, especially with one particular company, which has been very, very cooperative. And even before the lockdown, that company reached out to us with a memorandum of understanding that should workers be identified as having been symptomatic, what will be done, who will pay for the time at home and so on. So we are doing our bit, and we are getting cooperation from some companies, but others are adamant that workers didn't work, so it shouldn't get paid. So we are basically treating each on its merit.
So how will the CIW tackle an instance like that, where, like you said, the companies are adamant, but CIW has a different belief? How would you go about tackling that?
Which seems to be we have engaged, and we have done that with all the companies. We have engaged them. We have looked at what has happened. There's a particular company which had over $200,000 in losses during the period because they had to dump goods. A company like that, you can be unconscionable and demand that they pay workers for the period because the evidence is there. But on the other hand, there are some companies that did well during the lockdown because we still had trading, we still had goods coming in, we still had containers coming in, and some companies that traded in food did very well. As a matter of fact, we have been reliably informed that some companies did better in that period than any other time before. So you have to look at each company on its merit. So we are continuously engaging. We have written to some of the companies that we met previously asking for a re-engagement, and we are taking it one step at a time. But as we always do, we don't make much noise, but we get our work done.
While the CIWU may have fared better than, I guess, other unions, generally, what has the environment been comparing workers and the relationship that they have with their employers during these past few months of the COVID lockdown and protocols and regulations, and the instances of what has been seen as unjust treatment meted out to these employees?
Okay, and I go back again to the issue of the vacation. Now, as I said, the vacation belongs to the worker. The worker earns vacation. That worker worked for a whole year, and in giving that year to the company, they, in return, according to the law, earns vacation. The fear, the paranoia, I think everybody was paranoid when COVID hit our shoes. And that created so much fear that workers, although they were not asked, they went home willingly for fear of losing their job because they didn't know what would happen soon therefrom. So that is understandable. However, companies also use the opportunity And they showed the callousness. Some companies showed the callousness in demanding that the workers go on vacation. And not only that, although some of the workers, some companies, the workers are monthly paid. For example, there were days when workers were asked to come out for 3 days in the week. Some companies didn't even pay the workers for that week. They only paid for the 3 days. So a lot of things has come to the fore, but we are going ahead and trying to see how we can address the issues. Of course, with the background being, we don't want workers to lose their job. We can't afford for workers to lose their job. So we are doing our best, while in some cases, some of the things that are being done are very unsavory. At the end of the day, we don't want to lose jobs.
Has there been a collaborative effort? Has there been a collaborative effort between or among the unions in battling these instances?
Of course. And as was shown in the news with Tao and the Grand Lake workers, we are all united on that front. But our strategy is different. Our strategy is different because you have workers who are more militant in certain workplaces. And there are workers also who, after years of engaging in the companies, and you know the culture of the company, you would want to do something that will affect workers' employability down the road. So we are very cautious in how we approach it. There are many other cases which even other unions have instances of, but together we are looking at it very circumspectly.
What advice has the CIWU given to its workers? Like you said, while you want to ensure that workers are not treated unjustly, there's still this effort to ensure that workers can keep their jobs. So what advice have you given to your union members to ensure that they do what they need to fight the injustice, but ensure that they stay employed?
Right. So one of the things we have been telling workers is do what you are told to do. Be early on the job, be punctual, produce. And even though there are times you may be asked to do something extra, do it, because in this period, even before this period, from since the financial crisis of 2007, workers were asked to double up, and you had what you call cross-training. In this cross-training, what was done, the division of labor was broken down in the workplace. So where you had somebody with a clerical work, in the cross-training, you were asked to do other technical areas of work. And it was part of your learning experience. So we are not against that. Similarly, with the onset of COVID, we are encouraging workers to learn as much as you can, advance yourself, seek higher education, make yourself marketable. While you're at the job, be at your best, because there are thousands of workers out there knocking on the door for your job. So we have been getting a very positive response from workers. And as I said, we have not had a large attrition rate since COVID.
There are some workers who, I should put it, sometimes they are a bit difficult for being difficult's sake. And there are others who are extra nice for the extra job security. I'll phrase it that way. Do you think that has any effect on how companies are operating post-COVID, not even post-COVID, during these COVID times?
Yes. And it's a two-edged sword. There are workers who will go the extra mile, who will treat the company as theirs. I can give you a case in point with the workers in Grenville, and that was before COVID, in a Paris pharmacy. Those workers considered Paris pharmacy as their own. As a matter of fact, instructions we gave them to resist management overreaching in terms of their industrial relations. They saw it as not necessary because they are all in this together. Only at the end of the day, you have the company closing down and the workers now on the breadline, and they are being owed over 6 months in salary. That is an example of workers having so much confidence, and even to the extent of accepting the company's version of a situation rather than taking the union's advice. So the workers are home. We had to reach out to them. They are expecting the company to sell the building. Up until now, there's nothing happening. And that's the reality. On the other hand, you have companies now and management being so draconian that they institute working conditions that are unbearable. So while these conditions are there, while we challenge it, and while we continue to, for example, the particular company who we have engaged in negotiation over 4 years now, over 4 years, and that company is a family-owned. And one of the things that we have discovered is that the family-owned, the local family-owned businesses are some of the worst examples of good corporate citizens. Some of the companies have refused to even negotiate. And with the advent of the COVID situation, they are now literally threatening the workers. Look, if you don't do this, if you don't, and letters have been sent, if you don't improve to certain conditions, you're going to be fired. So while you have the workers giving the best on one side and losing, you have the employers on the other side really trying to be high-handed and draconian. But it's all part of a day's work, and we have to do what we have to do. And you may hear about more about that in the news.
From past experiences, negotiations are always tense between unions and employers, and that's prior to COVID. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the impact it has had on the economy, how do you think this would affect future negotiations? Because come hell or high water, some negotiations need to restart at some point. It may not be tomorrow, but at some point. How would that affect negotiations?
As I said, there are some companies that have done well in this COVID period. Especially those involved in food. While food may have a low markup, however, based on the volume, you can have a profit that is acceptable and appreciable. There are other companies that have had real dismal performances, and there will be, in some cases, some unions may have to negotiate for not negotiate, they may have to accept wage freezes in certain cases. And where there is genuine, of course, where there is genuine revelation that they fared badly, but where we can prove that they did well, we'll expect them to pay. But generally, as we on the negotiation aspect, I'd also like to speak about the other aspect regarding the performance of the health sector. And I really want to publicly thank the health sector for the sterling performance during the crisis. And even though what they are doing. And my hope is that there would be some incentive for the workers, especially the nurses and others, who have been working in an established format for 20, 25, 19 years, but they are not established. Know that they have done so remarkably well. I will expect that there will be some legislation, even though the Trade Union Council has to pilot it as a private member's bill, that these unestablished workers become established workers. And if we have to do it through a private member's resolution or motion, we would like to suggest also that the houses, especially the Senate, where we have a senator, just accept it, the ayes have it, or the need. It should be, we should ask for a division of the House. So if you move in a motion, if you pilot in a bill that health sector workers who are unestablished be established, and the motion is debated, the speaker or the president shouldn't ask for all the ayes, but should ask each member to indicate yes or no. That will tell John public how they regard the health workers who they lauded and praised just months ago. That is where the rubber begins the road. And so I want to segue from the aspect of CIW to that aspect. Now, coming back to CIW. Now, we are presently in negotiation. And already we have been told that some companies are unable to meet any commitments. Some of them said to us for 3 years. However, we have countered with, let's look at it year by year. We'll meet at the end of every year and see how we can go forward. But it's a reality. It's a new reality. And mind you, Blossom, many companies are having a tremendous saving in this period. Workers in the call centers, where all the workers are at home, you know how much saving in overheads these companies are enjoying in terms of electricity and air condition and water? The question is, what will they do with that windfall? So in all, there have been some give and some take, but we have to look at it holistically and see how, as unions, as government and private sector, how can we compensate and how can we ban our bellies going forward.
On that note, Mr. Mason, let's take a break and then we're going to come back and continue the discussion and invite our viewers and listeners to join the conversation as well. This is To The Point on Classic FM GBN. We'll be right back.
With the reopening of operations at the Maurice Bishop International Airport and Lauriston Airport in Carriacou, the Grenada Airports Authority has made changes to its operations that will help stop the spread of COVID-19 and keep passengers and airport employees safe. When you come to the airport, wearing of face coverings are required upon entry. Only ticketed passengers, crew members, and airport employees will be allowed to enter the airport terminal. Accompanying persons may be allowed access to assist passengers with special needs or unaccompanied minors. Temperature checks using contact-free thermometers will be conducted on all passengers. Only asymptomatic passengers will be allowed to proceed to the check-in process, while passengers with elevated temperatures will be referred to the public health desk for secondary assessment. After checking in, passengers are to proceed directly to immigration and security checkpoints with completed ED forms. While in the departure hall, passengers must sit according to physical distancing decals and await boarding call by seat numbers before joining the queue. All arriving passengers and crew must wear a mask before entering the terminal building, observe physical distancing, and sanitize upon entry. In addition to completing an ED form, arriving passengers must present a completed Grenada Health Declaration form and a negative COVID-19 PCR test result conducted within 7 days of travel. All arriving passengers will be screened and tested as necessary upon entry by health officials and may be subject to mandatory quarantine for a minimum of 2 to 4 days or maximum of 14 days. Visit www.covid19.gov.gd for regular updates. Passengers will be required to pay for all tests, monitoring, and accommodation as necessary. Once cleared to proceed to Immigration and Customs, passengers will be directed to the GAA-approved taxi dispatcher's desk. Passengers traveling from a green zone will be directed to a separate pickup location. Passengers who are not cleared will be directed by the public health officials. The GAA has strengthened its operational practices to help reduce the transmission of COVID-19 while bringing peace of mind to passengers and staff, providing a safe travel experience for all.
Welcome back to The Point. We're speaking with President of the Commercial and Industrial Workers Union, Mr. George Mason, union matters. Mr. Mason, before we go to our viewers and listeners, tell me more about the training opportunities that are available from the TUC and CIWU for its members.
Okay. From since 1998, our union established a program called Skills Training for Economic Survival, where we had classes in floral arranging, cake making, cake icing, cake decoration, pastry making, and so on, which really created an opportunity for both the employed workers and unemployed workers to learn something new where they can be financially enabled and empowered. That has been going on, and unfortunately, because of the COVID, we had to push back the one they had for this year. Many of our members have benefited, and even members from other unions have benefited from that training. Recently, with the elevation of Senator Andre Lewis to the helm of the Caribbean Congress of Labor, there has been an initiative to create more educational opportunities for members. In the 1980s, there was a plethora of opportunities. Of course, that was during the Cold War. Unionists went to study in Turin in Italy, in George Minnie in the US, George Minnie University, in Mona in Jamaica, in the Barbados Labour College in Barbados. So there were a lot of opportunities that were available, but some of the opportunities have dried up over the years. Through the initiative of Senator Lewis and the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies, we have a new frontier being established where workers can be trained, and they have offered a scholarship to workers in Grenada in areas of human resource studies, occupational safety and health, project management, cooperative studies, and labor studies. These are scholarships that have been given, of course, limited, right? There are 12 scholarships, there are 2 in each discipline, 2 in human resource studies, 2 in occupational safety and health, 2 in project management, 2 in cooperative studies, and 2 in labor studies. Now, this is the beginning of a new era where, as people like me ride out into the sunset, the new labor practitioners will be skilled and equipped and trained to do the work that we started and do that what needs to be done going forward because the workforce will be different, the working environment will be different, they'll be challenged with artificial intelligence, and of course this new format of working from home. So there'll be some changes that will be expected in the world of work. So these opportunities for training, we welcome very much, and we, as CIW, I want to thank Senator Lewis for his initiative and his vision in terms of ensuring that labor practitioners who are upcoming will be able to get those training. So CIW have been doing this part since 1998, and TUC has now embarked on this training program jointly with the Cipriani Labor College of Cooperative and Labor Studies.
All right. This point in the program, we're going to invite our viewers and listeners who may have comments, questions, queries, concerns for Mr. Mason in relation to union matters. This is your chance to do so. 435-2041. That's the landline number. That's also WhatsApp. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. You can also post your comments, questions, queries, concerns on the GBN Television Facebook page and the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel. So let's go to our first caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning, go ahead.
Good morning. Mr. Mason, you are doing very, very, very well with the information you are giving the world, specifically the nation. All what you have said seems to be, I can't even get a better word than the word seem, to have been right. I thought, and I've said it on program like this, that certain industries, especially the food industry, have done very, very well. I've made it known on the thing, and other people have done poorly. For example, the small business, the local business people, the small shops, they haven't done well at all. And to some extent, the agricultural people, because they couldn't sell their goods. But certain supermarket, as you have said, especially the food supermarket, have done very, very well, and they have a right to see how well they could compensate some of the workers proportionally. Also, I could say about 1 or 2 gas stations have done very, very well. As you would say, I don't want to call name, because maybe 1 or 2 gas stations were advised to open for a good period of time. So obviously they have done very, very well. And this is what I like to see, how you all are, the unions are approaching the business people in the negotiation, in paying more or can pay more or whatever the case may be. But that's very, very good. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
There is a Facebook question. The company, the call center, has made some of its workers sign an agreement stating that they'll pay their own electricity and internet while they save on overhead costs. Is this legal?
Well, that's, I can answer from where I sit. That will have to be, that explanation have to be given by somebody in the legal field. But Blossom, these guys are making exponential savings. Come on. So I hope somebody in the legal fraternity can look at that, but I can't give an answer to that. But I'm just talking about the reality. The reality is the tremendous savings. And the thing is, we don't know how long that will continue for. So it'll be glory, hallelujah, for them going forward, if it continues for another year.
Let me go back to the phone lines. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom. And good morning to Mr. Mason. I want to take this opportunity to salute the executive members of the CIW, especially that of Mr. Mason and Mrs. Fraser. They are always on the go, in touch with their workers, out in the field. They really treat them as family, and for that I really want to commend them. So many times people come down on union leaders and figure out they're paying dues and they're not getting satisfaction for the money. But CIW, they're really family. They're out, in touch with the workers that are displaced, always talking to them. Back to school, they are there providing for some of our children. And with the training and so, we can't do it without them. And for this, we just want to say thank you very much, and we commend them again. Have a blessed day, Mr. Mason. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much, caller.
Mr. Mason, there is another question that's asking the issue with the NIS. The union has been clamoring for wage increases for the workers, which was agreed to last year. The question is that fair considering NIS is only paying $330 in unemployment benefits?
Okay, well, that's a bomb. And I'll be candid, because most of you all know me. Now, fear, the word fear. I remember following the IMF program 2014 to 2017. The NS engaged, the government engaged the NS for a haircut in the loan to the NS. It was over $300 million. So the haircut would have been about $150 million, which meant that NS would have forgiven the government. No, we all strongly, TUC, Employers Federation, we all together strongly protested against that. And eventually, a new agreement was made where the time for payment was extended. So the loan period was extended, which gave the government more time to pay rather than have the haircuts. In 2017, the NIS met with stakeholders to discuss the national health insurance. All stakeholders were there, TUC, employers, Ministry of Health personnel. And I had done some calculation in terms of the saving that government would have had with the new arrangement. So had government been asked to come good and they promised to comply with the arrangement that was then, the government would have been in a very serious financial situation. However, with the arrangement being made to lengthen the period, in 2016, the government announced that they had a primary surplus on the books, which was over $200 million or thereabouts. I can be corrected on that. So in that meeting with the stakeholders, I suggested that why don't the government, having that surplus, put some money into the reserve of the NS? Well, everybody's had a laugh. One person even asked, Mr. Mason, how can you account for that? Because NS only collects from employers and employees. I said that you should put the money in a reserve because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Today, 3 years later, we have this issue with NS being asked to pay unemployment benefit. So the aspect of fairness comes in here, and vision. Here you have a surplus. It could have easily been put to mitigate against conditions as now. So while the $230 is not adequate, and I will openly say that it's not adequate, but that's as far as the actuaries, who are persons who look at risk and associated risk in finance and make recommendations. They recommended that, look, based on the government's order, because the government ordered NIS to pay that $10 million. Most of us, especially in the Trade Union Council, we thought that the government was going to give NIS the $10 million when the announcement was made, and that NIS would dispense with it because they already had the infrastructure in place. But it was the other way around. So NIS had to pay from their fund. So I will agree that the money is insufficient, but that's as far as we can get at this moment.
There is a Facebook question. We heard complaints about some of citizens who work with small businesses, such as the Indian stores and other foreign companies, and the way the workers are being treated. For instance, a pregnant woman who had to work without having a lunch period but eat while working and standing on her feet until closing. There's no maternity leave. In some instances, NIS is not being paid for the workers. What can the union do in such cases to remedy those situations?
Okay, we have representation for some Indian stores, not all. And I can tell you, the employers are very exemplary. But we know of others, and we have made attempts to have them organized, but they are very reluctant because of fear of losing their job. While the law gives every worker the right to join a trade union, another choice, but it is fear that I'll lose my job if I join a union. And in some cases, the workers are correct, because I know of a big business in town. Whenever there is the talk, or there's a rumor of union, workers are sent home. So there's this fear. The law is sort of silent on what's to be done in those cases, although if it is proven that an employer debars a worker by discipline that worker in any way from becoming a member of a union, they can be charged and they can be also jailed. Both can be done simultaneously. But you'll never find an employer putting in a dismissal letter that you are dismissed because of your intention to be in a union. So it's a really tricky and sticky situation, which in time we hope will give workers the confidence that by uniting, you can be able to get more from your employer. But that's what it is now. Unfortunately, I've heard of these situations. I've heard of some situations which are uncommon, which brings tears to my eyes. But that's the reality.
Let me go back to the phone lines. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom. Good morning, Mr. George Mason. Yes, I have a concern. I've been listening intently to the Prime Minister in regards to the whole matter of a worker and other people being given contracts. And it seems to indicate, I think I heard Brother Brian Grimes, and he even made mention of it in one of his articles that he wrote, that it seems to be where if we have people who are actually put on contract, it seems to be indicating the new norm in our country. And to me, that spells disaster. A number of these people ain't going to have anything to look forward to when they retire. Because NIS, it seems, would be a thing of the past in terms of them being able to, pay NIS, get NIS deducted because they're on contract. What is the union's idea on this whole phenomenon? Could you explain or give some insight into it, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Caller.
That's a very good question, Paula. Now, the world of work is no longer the provision of a position. In other words, companies don't fill in a position anymore. What they are doing, they look at the basic competencies. So what they will do is they need somebody to do data entry. They employ that person to do data entry. They give you a salary. And to follow up on what the caller said, only Friday I learned that some security guards are employed and they have to pay the full NIS. In other words, they're employed as contractors. One person, one worker is employed, and the company is telling him that he is a contractor. Give me a break. So companies are using, in a very unconscionable way, no conscience, some loopholes to exploit workers. So you have contract for service, and you have contract to serve. I wonder if I get it right. I may have it wrong. But there are two categories. Somebody who is employed on a contract for service as an individual, the company is expected to match, based on the statutory rules, match your pension, your NIS contribution. So if NIS contribution is 5% for the employer is supposed to pay that, and you as the worker are supposed to pay 4%. But there's another wording, which I don't repeat it here because I may have it wrong, which gives companies the right to contract another entity to do work. That entity will therefore employ workers. So the original company is not responsible for the NIS payments, but that entity that the company engages will be the one to pay. But there is some gray of the lines which companies are using flippantly. They are using. So one particular worker under security is paid and is being told you're a contractor. So you pay your NIS for yourself, and you're also, in other words, you pay your full NIS. We don't pay your NIS for you. So it's something that color is there. We have to look at it. We have to see how we can engage the workers who are on contract. In other words, nothing prevents a worker who is on contract from becoming unionized. But as you have raised that, I want to raise also the question of the public officers. Government have instituted a 3 for 10 program, where once a public officer reaches the age of 60, that worker is sent on retirement. And to every 10 such a worker, the government may hire 3. As you observe correctly, caller, that is weakening the union, because the union's membership is being dwindled every time. And eventually, the public sector union may be null and void. So we have to look at all these things in the context of one, companies just flippantly instituting engagement of employees, saying that they are contractors and not paying the matching NIS. And then the government on the other side, who literally is overseeing the debt of the public sector union, both teachers and public workers union, because they may take 3 when 10 go, or they may not take at all. In the meantime, the union have lost workers and members. That's the reality.
There's a WhatsApp question. Most people think they're not represented properly by the unions because they pay their dues, and in some cases, the union does not pay back pay. Some of the dues they pay to them, for example, the money that was taken by government from some teachers, and felt that the union should be given it back, a percentage of that money to the union members, saying it was a Christmas season and it was a damper in finance and taking away food from the table.
Okay, let me address that. In this period, and in every turbulent period where there is a shock in the economy, workers are affected and unions are affected. Now, unions doesn't have much money now. The money that unions collect invariably is just to pay the normal bills. And some unions, as ours, have a ceiling. So you can't pay, no matter how your salary increases, you can't pay more than that ceiling. So additionally, when there are, as now, there are workers being sent home, the union's commitment to the bank and so on. For example, in our case, we have a mortgage. Our mortgage remains the same. We have to pay our mortgage. So while it is a good suggestion, I can tell you from where I sit that a lot of unions are in the red. A lot of unions are in the red. Just look at that big building the union built, the Public Workers Union. That's a huge cost. So while the teachers and the public officers, the money was deducted, which I have a serious problem with. I don't think government should be so harsh. They may say that they had the right because workers didn't work, but looking at the circumstances at the time, and have they done Christmas, you know, where people are expecting gifts, government take away. Will you go with that? So in that case, I take strong umbrage what was done. But as for the union giving assistance, what I know unions have done, even this period, even our union, we are giving a lot of food baskets to members. It's a continuous process. We can give money, but we have been giving food baskets. And most unions are doing that.
One final question that I would pose this morning, it was on Facebook. When will the TUC push for unemployment insurance legislation?
Well, the NIS have looked at that, you know, Blossom. We received a letter from the NIS. They are doing a survey. We're looking at unemployment insurance. But it can't be done on the present fund. And let me, if you have time, let me just, oh no, not time. But NIS has to be seriously looked at. The recommendation from the actuaries from 2006 must be given high priority, and the continuous ordering of NIS, paying them without any contribution from government, paying unemployment benefit cannot continue. So therefore, it's imperative, it's a must, it's compulsory that they look at unemployment benefit.
Any final thoughts, 30 seconds as we wrap up the program?
Well, my final thought will be, I'm begging the government to really honor the court's order and pay Ms. Gemma Bain her money. Even though an arraignment can be made after the Prime Minister say, pay the lady her money. The court has given the order. I think the government should comply with the order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mason, for being our guest this morning. Thank you for your time. You have yourself a very blessed and productive Monday.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you very much. President of the Commercial and Industrial Workers Union, Mr. George Mason, our guest this morning. We thank him for being our guest, and thank you, our viewers and listeners, for tuning into the program. That's the end of my time today. I'll be back with you tomorrow, God willing. Until then, be good. If you can't be good, be cautious. Have a blessed Monday.
Whenever we're faced with difficulties, we find comfort in those we know and trust. This is especially true when a loved one has died.